Looks like we are live. Captain Logan. Hello, my friend. How are you?
I'm good. N64 Josh, honored to be with you again. It's been a long time since we've chatted, but I think we're here for some good reasons today.
I think so too.
We're gonna have some fun.
I think so too. We go back a ways now. Isn't that crazy? It's
so crazy.
It's kind of crazy. Like we got to meet in person when Destiny 2 got announced. We got to do a little meetup. That was super cool.
You know what's crazy about that is you came down to come visit me for Destiny 2, and I was excited because you were N64 Josh, and I just wanted to come see you and Destiny do your N64 content, just Nintendo content, and you guys are like psyched for Destiny 2, and I made so much fun of you for playing a warlock and your melee, your little hand poofs. And now 4 years later, I am maining a warlock and doing Deep Stone Crypt and looking forward to Vault of Glass because I've never played it. And I have to say, I am sorry. I am so sorry.
Well,
I love that class.
If I remember correctly, I think you made fun of my short Titan arms because I never played a warlock.
That might have been it. You just punching a lot.
Yep.
I just remember a hand poof. I don't even remember. I just remember you constantly punching things, and I was like,
"That's because I was a Titan." Ridiculous. Yep, that's you. You definitely made fun of me for that. There was no doubt about it. So, yeah, the only reason I played a warlock because I recently checked. I actually completed all the achievements on Destiny. I only played the warlock and the hunter long enough to complete the achievements, and then I got out. That was it.
Oh my god. Yeah, loving that. It was a really good time to actually come visit you. We've known each other for going close to 5 years at this point.
It's wild.
Because it's so weird that just time just flies, and it's great to actually be back. It's crazy that we're coming together like under Xbox at this point,
right? Because
of how we started, and it's so cool because I feel like I've always had a joy for Xbox, but it's never been like my main system. My main system was always like PC or like Nintendo, and to get to be on the Xbox on podcast with you and get a chance to actually dive into Xbox after how many years I've been diving deep into Sea of Thieves has just been I'm excited because I love talking about this system. I love talking about this ecosystem, and we're going to be talking about some games that I can't wait to dive into with you.
Yeah, it's going to be great. I'm going to hit the start button right now. Let's do this thing.
You're killing me.
What is happening? It is the Xbox Now podcast, and my very special guest today, Captain Logan. We already kind of did some introductions in the live stream, but here we are. It is officially go time on the Xbox Now podcast. How are you, my friend?
Oh, man. I'm doing good. I'm having a lot of fun. I feel like I gave you my best at the beginning, and now you're like, we're going live. And I'm like, what do you mean we're going live? I thought we were live.
Well, we were live. We were live. We're just, I hadn't played the intro yet, so.
It's a good intro too. It's a really nice intro. I'm not gonna say I'm jealous, but you got a good intro.
Well, maybe let's talk afterwards because I just made that myself, so there's not a lot to it. So we can talk. Okay, I could probably make you something cool. So,
okay,
this is all about just bringing people together that love video games, that love Xbox. You host a couple of podcasts yourself. We've podcasted together. We were talking about in the very beginning. As soon as I hit the go live button, we're talking about how we got to meet up in California when Destiny 2 got released because I was heading down there to cover that event. And like you've been a co-host with me on the Nintendo Powercast, and now you're doing your own shows. And I gotta tell you, man, it's so cool watching because there's been long periods of time where we don't really get to chat or whatever. It's just life, right? Like that's just the way life is.
Oh yeah.
But having Twitter and being able to see correct me if I'm wrong, but are you not in Sea of Thieves now? Isn't there some kind of like a skeleton or something? Like it's just so cool watching you and your content grow and like I don't know. It fills my heart with joy just watching the stuff that you're doing. You know, even if it's just from the sidelines or whatever. So, tell us a little bit about your Sea of Thieves podcast and what's going on there.
Well, first off, I got to say thank you, Josh, for having me on, because it's fun to get to sit back and actually listen to podcasts. It's another to get to hang out with you again. It's crazy because you're absolutely right. I got back into Nintendo back in like 2016, 2017 when I was excited for the NX, and I was digging through Apple Podcasts because at the time I had a ton of time to listen to stuff. I was really like my work life was me walking around yards killing bugs all day. It was boring,
Right.
let me tell you. But getting into Nintendo and seeing your content, and then having you actually bring me onto the show, getting to meet you, getting to understand how podcasting works, you've helped out tremendously in helping kind of start that fire of content creation for me. Like, because of you, I started getting into streaming. I started wanting to do podcasts. So when Sea of Thieves came out, I have always been in love with pirates. That's just a weird quirk about me when I was ever growing up. I love Skull and Bones. I love, swords, cutlasses, treasure, curses, things like that. That's just always been my bag. So when Sea of Thieves came out and I saw it, I was just like, oh my God, this is my game. This is like my dig. So I got into that, and I scrapped all of my plans to do a Nintendo podcast because I just wanted to make content. And I started up Keelhauled podcast, which is a Sea of Thieves dedicated show. And I do that weekly, just covering news, stories, my feelings on Sea of Thieves. Because at the time, I just wanted to make something that I was passionate about. If it's one thing you've always told me, it's make something that you are passionate about. And that way you'll never get bored doing it. So Sea of Thieves came around, and it was easy for me to do that. And I've been making content for Keelhauled for years. I recently joined another show for Cyberpunk, which for some reason I like picking games that have really rough starts but have that promise. I don't know. I know how to pick them, I guess. But yeah, man, it's been insane. You mentioned that I was in the game. One of the things that the devs actually did for me is, in the world there's all these skeletons. Like, skeletons are basically the only thing you fight outside of other people. But there are skeleton captains that have names. And all of the skeleton captains that have names that are just kind of emergent are all based on the devs, except for me. I'm one of the few that is not a dev, but actually has his gamer tag in the game as a captain. And because my gamer tag is CaptainLogun, they're like, oh, well, that's easy. we know exactly what to do with this guy. So they made me an emergent captain. And now I get tweets from people all the time hitting me up being like, hey, I just killed your captain. Thanks for the skull. And I'm like, no problem, dude. It's my pleasure. So it's been a wild ride. And I think after we record here, I'm actually going to be recording my podcast. And I can't wait. It's been a real pleasure. But I think the thing that I've learned the most from this is having a new appreciation for Xbox, because I've been there since the beginning and dipped in and dipped out of Xbox throughout my entire life. But I feel like right now is a time when Xbox is just like, they are prime for taking the community and really showcasing like what a company can do when they want to care for their consumers. And I don't see that with Nintendo. I don't see that as much with PlayStation. And PC, it's always just been a free-for-all. It's always just been like, do what you want. It doesn't matter. Here are the tools. You have fun and play with it. But Xbox seems to be at a level right now where everything they're doing is in the best interest for the consumer, whether it pans out well for Xbox. But they've got a plan, and that plan is value. And I don't know about you. I'm not a rich guy. I like to feel like I'm a rich guy, if I go to Starbucks, I like to get the big drink, with the extra whip. I go to Chipotle and I'm like, yeah, throw the guac on there. That's cool.
Throw the guac on.
I like to feel like that.
I'm no peasant. I order the guac.
I get the guac if you don't mind. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
I'll take that burrito and shove it in my face. It's beautiful. So I like to feel like that, but I know I'm not. I got my Apple phone and that's fine. But I've been enjoying the value that I get from Xbox so much that it really means the world to me when I can sit there and I can say, like, yeah, if you want a lot of variety, if you want a lot of good first party games and you're happy with the games that the Xbox has put out, then there's no better system right now than the Xbox systems, whether it's, you know, on your phone with xCloud, whether it's on your PC through Windows, or whether it's through an Xbox One or Xbox One X or an S or a Series S or a Series X. All of those are just giving you tools to gain access to probably one of the best deals in gaming, hands down. And it's so nice to feel that sense of pride in something that you're supporting because you see the value and they respect the value. But yeah,
Nintendo's doing their thing, right? I mean, they're selling games like no other company right now. Like, PlayStation's biggest titles sell a fraction of what Nintendo is doing with ports, mind you.
Yeah.
Mario Kart is over like what, 35 million. I haven't seen the latest NPDs. I know they came out last week, but I was on vacation. They're just absolutely crushing it, right? Animal Crossing, Smash Bros, Odyssey, Breath of the Wild, all those games, like, they've sold so many copies. Nintendo's doing their thing. Monster Hunter just came out, totally niche, 6 million copies, right? Like, at least. And so this is great. This is great. There's tons for gamers to play. PlayStation's doing their thing. They're gonna keep putting out their cinematic, high quality games, and here's what's happening right now is Sony's on top. They're doing their thing with systems. Nintendo's right behind them, right at their tails. Like, I mean, the Switch is selling like crazy as well. And then you have Xbox that's all about changing the way we game. That's leading the charge in turning gaming into a Netflix style of service, which is it's awesome. But you've also got a lot of collectibles behind you. I have an office full of collectibles right here, you know, and so to just consume games the way Xbox is offering it is great as far as like, okay, I can consume the games I want, the way I want, when I want, but I'm also missing out on these artifacts that I've been buying for so long. So one of the things I'd like to hear from you about is like, how do you feel about that? That are, you know, the items that we used to pick up, you know, the tangible item. It's kind of going away. It happened. We're old enough that we watched it with music.
Yeah.
I don't really buy Blu-rays anymore. I just buy them digitally on Vudu because I don't want to store them in my entertainment center, and they're everywhere I have a device I can watch them on, right? And now it's happening with games. So as a collector, how do you feel about it?
You know, it's hard to really like judge if this is the right way to go with games, like, you know, having things digital, having things kind of ethereal, like, is that going to be good for the industry in the long run? It's going to be hard. I think a lot of good people are out there trying to do things like game preservation. When it comes to these artifacts, these plastic little hits of dopamine that are all sitting behind me, it's so hard to say like, no, I don't necessarily need those, because obviously if you're watching right now, which you should definitely be watching, you'll see I have a ton of plastic and it's all beautifully displayed with all of my cases and my lights, and I'm doing my thing. But I really do love them. But at the end of the day, they are just little hits of dopamine. Every time I click buy on something, it makes me feel good. If I don't get that with Xbox, I don't necessarily feel like I'm missing out, because the little hit of dopamine that I get when I click buy on an amiibo is supplanted by, ooh, what is this game on Game Pass? This looks interesting.
Yeah.
I don't have to pay for that. I can just click install. What do I need? Red Dead Redemption? No, get that out of here. I'm done with that. Let's get this little cloud raining on people. I want to see what that's about. And I get that dopamine hit every time I click install on Game Pass, because that is my new way to try and get something fresh, get something new without having to shove more of these amiibos along the wall to try and fit something behind me, because I have no room. I have no room, Josh. I cannot do anything more with this. I've tried. I've even installed other shelves in one of the other rooms just to put more plastic amiibo in Funko Pops on there so that I could open up more room here. I only have so much wall space, man. So I do hope that we get stuff in the future that really kind of showcases some of those things. You know, I've seen there's some great stuff that I've gotten through Sea of Thieves that are little Tutaku figures or little Loot Crate figures, things like that. They're not in their normal places. They're not offered by Xbox. And if I had to take it from Xbox, I probably would. But it's not necessarily the end of the world for me if I don't have this legacy of Nintendo stuff behind me in the form of Xbox. So I kind of feel like, yeah, kind of going back to the beginning, I feel like Game Pass has kind of taken that spot for that little dopamine, that little hit that I need to feel like I've kind of invested something, or I've gotten some value out of my ecosystem.
You know, it's crazy. When the Switch came out early, it was always about trying to, like, I wanted every game on the Switch, right? I wanted, and the thing with achievements now, or, you know, back to having achievements again. Like, I'm hooked. I'm hooked on like, I played through Celeste, and I'm gonna 1,000 that game out because that's it just made it made it more fun for me. It made it more fun, and so
yeah,
I love gaming on Xbox again. I'm like 3/4 of the way through Resident Evil 7, and plan on picking up The Village probably later this week and jumping into that one because I'm ready to have my face scared right off, you know. So
oh man. It looks so good too. I've been watching a lot of streams about that, and I guarantee you there's going to be some scary moments. And I've been having a good time watching people play that. But I will never play that game. But I will watch a lot of people get scared on Twitch because that is fun. So when you start that, let me know, because I would love to come watch you get scared. Make sure you got your brown pants on and stuff.
Oh right, exactly. Yeah. The thing that's with those games for me anyway, like I remember the when I jumped into 7, I was like, I would have a few jump scares, and then eventually it kind of just wore off, and you were just like, okay, let's just get through this. Well, I took a long enough break that I had to get that, like, I had to get to that point again where I'm like, okay, like, and now I'm at the end of 7, and I'm like, okay, I just want to be done. Part of it that drives me crazy is like the slow movement. We were talking about it in the Discord a little bit,
yeah.
And like, you know, Hate Zero was mentioning, he's like, I just don't like like your field of view is so tiny, right? Like, because they want to be able to scare you, and
yeah.
But it starts to like drag on a little bit, and I'm like, okay, I just want to be done. I just want to be done. So
you want to be able to sprint. You want to be able to have that 120 FOV. It's like, I see all you zombies.
Right.
None of you guys are getting the jump on me.
Exactly.
I understand.
Yeah.
It's so, I was watching someone, oh gosh, who was I watching the other day? I can't remember. It was a really nice streamer, but they were playing Resident Evil 8. Every time something jumped, she would just like shudder and almost drop her controller at the time. And I'm just like, God, I'm so glad I'm not playing this, but I've been enjoying it. But yeah, it's definitely counter to what we're used to with our shooters, and having a nice wide field of view and being able to know exactly what's going on all the time. But yeah, it's been really nice. So there's another game that actually kind of feels a little bit slow. And I think we'll get into a little bit later, but yeah, I've been having the same feels with Mass Effect lately, with Mass Effect 1, and feeling that fatigue of just constantly slowly walking little by little and sprinting when I can.
Let's jump into it. Like, you reached out to me and you were like, hey, I think the message read something like, yo, Mass Effect Legendary Edition is kind of bringing the hype back. Do you think Nintendo could do something like this with Metroid? And then I replied back that Xbox tried to do it with Master Chief Collection. And I mean, I feel like it's in a great place now, but when that game launched, it was almost the nail in the coffin for the Xbox One to be in a terrible place for the remainder of its life, you know. And so,
Oh yeah.
let's talk about it though. How do you feel like? What do you feel that Mass Effect is doing, or EA is doing with that brand to kind of bring hype back and get people back on board?
So this is really interesting to me, and yeah, you kind of hit it succinctly. I've been wanting to get back into Mass Effect because when the 360 was out, I wasn't really invested in it. I was like years and years of time invested into World of Warcraft. That was the only game I was playing at the time. But I went up to a buddy's house in Alaska, and he and I were playing on his 360. We did Rock Band, we did Gears of War, and Mass Effect, and I didn't realize that games had changed so much in the time when I started playing World of Warcraft to when Mass Effect 2 came out. That was just not a thing in my mind. I was just like, oh, every game's like Warcraft. I don't need to worry about playing other games because it's not Warcraft. And then I got to play Gears of War and Gears of War 2, and I was like, oh my God, what are these games? These are amazing. And getting into Mass Effect, I was like, I can have relationships and I'm single?
Right.
I like this. Okay, let's do this. So I have a lot of nostalgia for Mass Effect 2. And so when Mass Effect Legendary Edition was announced, I was like, you know, I have access through Game Pass to play all the Mass Effect games. I could totally do those right now, but I feel like I want to see what this Legendary Edition is about, because this Legendary Edition is going to really kind of say, like, you know, games aren't going to look good. I have a different expectation now. You know, I play Apex, I play Sea of Thieves. I have beautiful games to kind of jump to and from in my gaming kind of library right now. So Mass Effect Legendary Edition really has to show me exactly what a remaster can do. And while it's not like Tony Hawk Pro Skater 1 and 2, it is definitely up there as far as remakes go. And what I think Nintendo honestly needs to do is they need to take a look at what EA and BioWare are doing with Mass Effect Legendary Edition. They are taking 3 of the best games that BioWare has ever made, and they are packaging them together in a remastered form that caters to the nostalgia. And they need to release it in a $60 bundle. And they need to do this with Metroid Prime, because Metroid Prime is something that everyone has expected that the trilogy would eventually come out to Switch. And they just haven't done it. And everyone kind of feels like right now they're like, hey, this is something that's going to be coming alongside Metroid Prime 4. Well, Metroid Prime 4 is not actually a game right now. They are still hiring people for this quote unquote game. And everyone's like, oh, well, Retro is going to do it. Retro is going to do it. It's going to be amazing. We don't know if it's going to be amazing. We have no clue if this game is going to be amazing. If anything, I would rather have a company like BioWare or, oh my God, Apex, Respawn. I would love if Respawn did a Metroid Prime, because they understand shooters so well that I don't know if Retro still has that blood in them to be able to pull off what made Metroid Prime good. But what Nintendo is failing at right now, and what BioWare is winning at, is releasing their legacy in an up-resed version that is accessible for players to rebuild that brand. Because right now, Mass Effect doesn't have a very good name for it outside of those 3 games. Andromeda was not very well received. I've heard that it's gotten much better, and I'm looking forward to jumping into it after I finish the trilogy right now. But they are making a new Mass Effect game. And I think that's really compelling if you're trying to build a brand. You talked about earlier about how Nintendo is selling gangbusters with ports to their Switch game just based off of their old content. And just like you, I bought the Super Mario bundle. I'm going to be picking up Skyward Sword. I'm going to be picking up those nostalgia hits because that's what Nintendo's good at doing to me. Mm-hmm. And BioWare recognizes that. They see the value in their Mass Effect trilogy. And it's one of those things where if Nintendo could just take a page out of EA and BioWare's notepad and say, like, hey, we know you love Metroid. We know you're excited for Metroid Prime. We are going to up-res customize the controls so that it works for the Switch for dual stick. We're going to redo these games and make them look new, make them look like they're next gen games, and bring those out in a trilogy. That would go so well for Nintendo. And I just don't understand why they're not doing this. They always do their own thing, and it always seems to work regardless. And it always frustrates me because we're consumers. We're supposed to put our dollar down and say, no, I'm not going to support this. But they got us, man. They got us by the huevos, and they're like, I'm going to squeeze these huevos, boy. I'm going to squeeze them for all they're worth because I know exactly what you want and exactly what you need. And I'm going to piecemeal this stuff out to you. So I've been loving what EA and BioWare has done for this. I'm excited to find out what their next Mass Effect game is. And I just wish that Nintendo would take a page out of this and apply that to the Metroid Prime franchise in hopes that they stop catering to what they know is going to work and start doing something that's a little more consumer friendly. And I wanted to see what your thoughts on this, because we both come from a same perspective of loving Metroid, loving Nintendo, loving Mass Effect, and wanting to see Metroid Prime come to fruition.
I feel like Nintendo is in those places. Like I talked about it on the Nintendo Powercast. Like they're in a place now where they can get weird, where they can get more Nintendo. You know what I mean? Like they can release games like this, like the Famicom Detective, and you're like, what is this? This is so obscure. You know, is that game going to sell more than Metroid Prime trilogy? I don't know.
At this point, maybe. You never know.
You never know. You never know how it's going to sell in. You know, I think this is a series that was loved in Japan, right? But it's a series that we have no clue about. Like I hadn't even heard of it until it was announced, right? Nintendo's also getting weird doing like this Miitopia, you know? Like they're putting that out. So I feel like they're in such a great place that like we could see Metroid Prime trilogy, we could see F-Zero, we could see a collection of Wave Race and 1080 all put together. Like I think they're in a place that they could do it. It's just whether or not they will do it.
Yeah, I feel like Nintendo doesn't really understand their games or why they're appealing to people. I think they make a lot of good games, but they don't realize why people enjoy those games. Because when I look at things like announcements coming to Mario Party, like they're doing online Mario Party, and I'm like, why wasn't that from the beginning? Why did it take so long for Nintendo to update their game so that it offered online? And I'm like, oh, because they're all sitting at home and they can't play these games with each other in the studio. So if they can't play these games with each other in the studio, how are they gonna? Well, they're gonna have to put it online in there. So it's like, well, of course Mario Party's getting online functionality 2 years after it's been released because they're in lockdown. They got nothing to play with each other. So of course they're gonna support that because it serves them. And that's where I feel like they're like, why would we play these old Metroid games? We don't like them. It's an American aesthetic. It's American gameplay style. They just let retro build them. They aren't playing the games that we are, in my opinion. And that's why we're not seeing games like Wave Race. That's why we're not seeing games like Metroid Prime come out. That's why we're not seeing like Kid Icaruses and stuff come out. We're seeing games like Famicom Detective.
Mm-hmm.
And Pokemon Snap, another case. Was Pokemon Snap really ever going to come out if there wasn't such a fervor for it on social media? Probably not. Did they give us exactly what Pokemon Snap was back in the 90s? Yes. Did they iterate on it? It looks all right. It kind of looks better. It's nice. You know, they updated it. They gave us new Pokemon, but it's not something unique to Nintendo. It is literally them just producing something that is hitting that nostalgia hit because so many people were bugging them about it. And I feel like they just don't have a good pulse on what people want. But then I look at Xbox. Xbox is like, you want to play your old games. We don't have anything new coming out right now. We're going to bump up all of your old games to 120 frames per second. Mm-hmm. What's that? You didn't have a TV that supports 120 frames? That's okay. When you buy that $2,000 TV, it will still be there for you. Oh, and it doesn't cost anything. We're not going to charge you for that. This isn't like a license that you have to get to buy to be able to play these games at that frame rate. You want to play those old games, you have those old games, just install the game and you get it better. It just makes it better. And I'm like, that is a PC approach. That is what PC does really well. You get a new graphics card and it looks better. Nintendo, no. If you want the better game, you're going to have to wait for the remake and you're going to have to pay full price, even if you still own that game on another system. And it kills me. I don't get it. I don't understand why they do it, but I just hope that if we talk loudly enough about Metroid Prime Trilogy, that maybe it might cut through some of the noise and get back to some of those devs. And they might actually just take that trilogy package, up-res it, and release it for the Switch.
So let's talk about Master Chief Collection. And when that got released, remember the train wreck?
Oh yeah, it was pretty rough, and there was a lot of mea culpas that had to be put out. But yeah, what were your expectations going into the Mass Effect or the Master Chief Collection compared to when it actually came out?
I was so excited. I was so excited for the Halo 2 anniversary stuff. I was so excited to have Halo 1 as, easily accessible to be able to play online with people. It didn't work. Did Xbox? But they stuck with it, right? And now it's one of those games that, like, it still has, like, I think a player base of around 15K, and it's probably increased due to the games hitting PC. So but when it launched, it was so disappointing. And like I said early on, I feel like it was almost like the nail in the coffin, where it was like, this could have been, it could have been a game changer for the Xbox, and it was more egg on their face. And it was just one more thing that they had to fight their way out of it. And I'm glad they didn't give up on it. Honestly, the fact that game is not only very playable now, but still supported on, like, they've added seasons. You have things like they just like there's new Rhino armor that you can unlock now. Like they're constantly enticing people to be in there and be playing it. And I love that. All their artwork that just came out. Master Chief is Xbox's Mario.
Yeah, 100%.
And I can't remember. I was listening to somebody talk about Halo 5 the other day, and it was like, he was like the supporting actor in Halo 5. Yeah, Master Chief really is weird. Halo, right? And that's what Infinite has to do. And that's what he was in all the other games other than ODST, but it fit, right? And they gave us the cast of Firefly, so you can't complain about that. You got, it was awesome. And so
I think they fixed that. I think they fixed it. I think looking at Halo Infinite and the trailer that we got, we already have our sidekick. He's already in the game. We already know who we're going to be talking to throughout the duration of the game. And Master Chief looks damn sexy, dude.
Mm-hmm.
It, like, a lot of people were giving crap about that trailer, but I tell you right now, that game has not looked better on that. And I cannot wait for Infinite. I 100% agree with you. And I think the thing that really kind of showcases exactly what Xbox has been on this whole time is that they aren't giving up, even when they're at their lowest. Mass Effect, the MCC it didn't launch well, but they stuck to it. They continued to iterate. They listened to the community, and that game is in the best place that it could possibly have ever been. They've been doing flights for the betas for PC. They're going to be doing flights for the beta for Infinite, and they understand now that the best way to sell a franchise, to sell an ecosystem, is to be in with your community and actually grow with them, have them be a voice that you listen to, and that impacts your ecosystem more than you just saying, this is what you're getting, this is what we're putting time towards, and this is what you deserve. And then having everyone just be like, yes, sir, thank you, sir, I appreciate that, I will buy that at $60, it's okay. And it's reassuring to know that if people look at what's going on with Infinite and they say, right now, I don't feel confident that Infinite is going to hit at launch, just look at what they did with the Master Chief Collection Edition and know that even if it's not 100% what you want at launch, it doesn't matter because that studio is not going anywhere. That studio is doing exactly what they want to do, which is make you happy, make you enjoy this game. And if it's not doing that, they're going to readjust. They're going to turn and continue to make iterations on the game till everyone is happy with what they're getting because they want that value. They want that joy that it brings because they're playing the games as well. And I just don't see that with other companies.
I mean, you know full well you host a Sea of Thieves podcast, right? Like that game was another game that when it launched, like I think a lot of people had high expectations for it, and then it fell flat, and they had to continue working on it, you know. And I think all those missteps from last gen, I hope anyway, are going to be they're going to make those corrections for this gen, and we're going to see hopefully more completed games. I mean, look, they delayed Infinite for a year.
Yeah.
I mean, 1996, 1995, Nintendo delayed an entire system because Mario 64 wasn't ready, right? Yeah. They still launched and they said, "Here you go. Like, we're banking on Game Pass. We're banking on the fact that we're gonna continue making your older games still worth jumping into." Right? And it's they haven't stopped fighting, which is why, I mean, it's the reason I'm doing this show. It's the reason I'm making, like, you know how much fun I had on vacation writing articles for XboxNow.tv, because like I love watching what they're doing. They're fighting the way Nintendo did 4 years ago. And Nintendo is in a very healthy place. That company can pretty much do what they want, and they're going to continue succeeding. And Xbox is now climbing that hill, and it's exciting to see. If not only that, it's the 20-year anniversary, which was the other thing you wanted to you hit me up about chatting about, right? They tweeted out this week Xbox 20 #Xbox 20. I mean, all I think my reply to their tweet was all I can think about is LAN parties and sticky nades and Blood Gulch, right? I mean, that was like the first thing that came to mind. And so, you know, what's kind of your history with you also mentioned the GameCube during that time. And so as soon as you said that, like there's a lot of fun conversations to have around the Xbox 20. So what was it like for you? Where were you at? What were you doing when the Xbox came out?
You nailed it, man. You absolutely nailed it. So right now, you were talking about how Xbox has not quit. They are continuing to fight. They're continuing to crawl back into the place that they were with the 360, and they're doing that because they have legacy now. They have a legacy of content that they are supporting, that they're improving upon, and they're bringing that to people in a way that is so much more accessible than it ever was before, that it really shows that, hey, we know that they've got, 23 studios working on stuff right now. We know that there's going to be amazing games coming in the future. And I'm not going to lie, a lot of that is stuff that most of us have probably played. A lot of us have probably touched on that content. But being able to go back and play it with FPS boost, with HDR, auto HDR, with quick resume, with all of these buzzwords that they're adding is just a testament to them knowing, like, this is them giving us time to say, like, hey, it's coming. Just make sure that you're sticking around, because right now we're going to give you better reasons to play all the games that you have right now. Apex, or not Apex. I'm thinking Respawn games. Titanfall 2, 120 frames per second is amazing. So legacy is what they're banking on right now. And when they came out with the #Xbox 20, the 20 years that they've been playing on, it stirred up some emotions, because I'm not going to lie, man, when I was there I never got to go to an E3. I've never gotten to go to an E3. I can't wait to go to an E3. But when I was in Arizona during 2001, I was in college for art school. And I had 3 other buddies with me who were all gamers. We were all really excited about this. And in Arizona, in Tempe at the time, they actually took an entire parking lot, a huge parking lot, and they put up tents for Xbox, like a huge, long, expanding tent. And when you went to go visit there, they had tons and tons of TVs and Xboxes set up, just row. They were all land together. And you were, as soon as you walked in, the first thing you got, and I'll never forget this, they gave me the first Halo book before the game was even launched. They're like, hey, we're a new game console. We've got a new IP, but there's already story built for it. And here's the book to get you caught up for it. And I took that Reach book and I was like, okay, sure, whatever. And I held on to it and I was like, if you want to give me a free book, that's fine, whatever. I'll read it like on the toilet.
I'm here
sure,
to play
cool.
video games, not read. What is going on?
Yeah, like I was like, this is not a good way to get me invested, but I appreciate the effort. Thanks for the book. Because I was a Nintendo 64 fan, man. I didn't know what Xbox was, but I was going to at least check it out because I understood like Microsoft. Microsoft was the name I got. And so I go in there and I'm playing Halo. And I remember like kind of getting used to the Duke controller. Like I'm a 6-foot tall guy, but I got small hands. So the Duke for me is still kind of like a little scary. Like I still feel like I'm kind of getting pressed up against by some dude's chest in a gym whenever I'm holding the Duke. That's what the feeling gives me, and it's weird, but go with me. So I'm getting used to the Duke, and I'm just playing Halo, and I feel that visceral feel of the gunplay and driving around in a Warthog, and I'm just like, man, this is nothing like anything I'm getting from Nintendo. And this was really strange because at the same time during that event, not too far, like 3 blocks away in Tempe, there was an abandoned building that Nintendo had rented out. They had cordoned off the upper levels of the building, and the bottom floor of that building was a Nintendo GameCube nightclub. Now, there's no drinks involved. They might have had like water for people, but it was dark. They had tons of lights going around. They had guys in pink and black polo shirts with Nintendo GameCube on it that I got. I actually got one of the dudes to give me one of those shirts because I was just so in love with Nintendo.
Yeah.
And inside they had a whole bunch of little booths where there were little private booths, and you'd sit in the booth and you'd play like Star Wars Rogue Leader, and you'd play Luigi's Mansion, and you'd play Wave Race, and Pikmin, and I was just like, I was dying over myself. I was just tripping over myself to get to these consoles because I was such a Nintendo fan, and it was absolutely insane to have these 2 big console players in the game just across the streets from each other showing off games. And I kid you not, man, I went home and I absolutely loved all the things that I couldn't wait. I bought a GameCube day one. It was the most amazing thing. But I read that Halo book and got such Ender's Game vibes from it that I was like, okay, I have to see what this is about, because this Halo game is actually kind of hitting. The gameplay was fun. I had a really good time with it. And I ended up buying an Xbox as well, too, eventually, because I started working for GameStop. And it was such an interesting, pivotal moment. That was the moment where I think I went from being a Nintendo fan to a game fan, because I played Blizzard games, and Blizzard games were always my thing. But getting to invest in another console through Halo really did kind of change my perspective on what games could be, because Nintendo just wasn't doing that. They had GoldenEye, they had Perfect Dark. Those were great games, but they weren't Halo. And thinking about Halo in 20 years of life now at this point, it's just it brings back those memories of like what I was like when I was thinking like games are expansive, games are different. I really have to open my eyes to what everyone else is doing, because if I don't, I'm going to miss out on stuff like that, which I didn't even heed that warning in the future because I still blinded myself with World of Warcraft. But I absolutely love that moment in my life. And Josh, I'm willing to bet money, not much, because I'll put the guac. I'll tell you what.
You'll bet the guac.
I'll take guac off, and I'll take that money, and I'll put a bet down that says that you've probably got a pretty good story about when you were going into looking at what this Xbox was for the first time as well?
Okay, I loved the GameCube. I loved it. My wife like was working as a barista. She was saving all of her tips. She had everybody in our family contribute in some way. And so when I got the GameCube, I opened it at my house that Christmas morning. I'm like a 20, I think I was like 20, 21 years old, having the best console Christmas ever. We went to family member, and it was they had an extra controller, and they had Rogue Squadron, and they had Smash for me, and it was like, it ended up being an amazing Christmas. And this Xbox was coming out, and I love first person shooters. I love Perfect Dark. There was a proximity mine in Smash that was like, I was holding on to hope that Perfect Dark, I wasn't going to need Halo because there was Perfect Dark coming, right? Perfect Dark was going to release. Who needs Halo? And then Microsoft bought Rare. Right? And so...
Are you saying that you didn't like Star Fox Adventures?
I never even played it. I've never even played that game.
That's okay.
Yeah.
I'll forgive you. It's
yeah,
all right.
Never even played it. And so, as a shooter fan, I remember the first time I played Halo, and I was so mad at how much I liked it. I was so angry at how much I like, and I was just like looking for reasons to be like, I can't enjoy this. Right? The controller is so huge and weird. Like why is this controller the size of a Big Mac? I didn't get it. It just didn't make sense to me. It's not comfortable. What is the black and white button? They were just it was just weird. It was weird. And then, I remember looking down while playing Blood Gulch and seeing the grass, and I was just like, man, this game looks so good. It looks so good. I'm going to have to and then and then you start hearing about they're going to have online, right? Xbox Live was going to be happening. We were going to be playing console games online. Now, there was a short time there between the 64 and the GameCube that I was actually PC gaming, and I was playing Aliens vs. Predator on 56K modem, right? And yeah, but it was rough. But it's all we had. And where I lived, I couldn't even get, they had DSL was brand new, but I couldn't get it at the house I lived at. And I remember when I finally moved, I lived right on the river, and it was going to flood. We moved in 8 hours. And so we moved into my buddy's house. And during that transition, I bought my Xbox, and it came with Mech Assault and Splinter Cell. That was the package.
Oh,
that was
God.
the pack that I bought.
So good.
And the rest is kind of history, honestly. I've met co-hosts from podcasts, Hate Zero, Eric, through Rainbow Six on Xbox, and starting to do LAN parties in Halo. That was the best. There was nothing like that Nintendo was doing. It didn't matter. I was trying to play GoldenEye, or not GoldenEye, Bond, Agent Under Fire, right? It was the first FPS game to hit the GameCube. It was garbage. We had a little bit of fun doing the sniper mode in the subway station or whatever, but Halo was blowing it out of the park, right? It was just completely knocking it out of the park. And so, yeah, when I remember using Xbox Connect to play Halo online, because it didn't have online, right? It was a launch title. And then the excitement of waiting for Halo 2 and having that game come out. It has been such a huge, when people ask me what are my favorite games, it's a toss up between Mario Kart and Halo. Halo's always right there, because it was the evolution of the first-person shooter on the console, and it nailed it. It nailed it. I loved sitting in a room with 4 people and playing GoldenEye and Perfect Dark. And Halo was the evolution of that. And then when they released Perfect Dark on the 360 as a launch title, that wasn't it. That wasn't it. And then Halo 3 came out and it was like, this is it, you know? Halo 4, I still loved it. I know it got a lot of hate. Reach, I don't love as much as the other ones. The DMR and the Bloom, I've never really loved that. It's never been my favorite.
I'll support you on that. I will support you on that. It's okay. Reach is not as good as people make it out to be. I'm sorry, people. Reach is not as good as you think it is.
That's at Cap_Logan. If you
at me, I don't care. I got a mute button.
But I mean, the thing is, I think Reach has a ton of nostalgia for people, right? Yeah. Like, and there's nothing wrong. There's nothing wrong with that whatsoever. I enjoyed 4. I had like over a 2.0 KD in multiplayer on 4. I loved it. I loved it. I 1000'd out the game, right, with achievements. And then, you know, fast forward even to Halo 5. To me, Halo 5, as far as like the movement, the gunplay, I don't know that there's in my opinion, it was everything I wanted in a first-person shooter as far as the mechanics go in the gameplay. Where it lacked was maps that were super enjoyable, and it also lacked in those asymmetrical maps that allowed for vehicles like we used to do back in the Halo 2 days. That's where I felt like it had swayed so much to the competitive side that if it was one of those games that was hard for people. It was tough. And I mean, and that's good. Having having a game with a skill gap is fine. But when Warzone was all that everybody else was left to, like that's what they had to play. I could see why it didn't have a very long tail for very many people. Because it just Warzone was I love that they tried, but I just don't feel that it was, you know, the mix of NPCs with like Titanfall, I think hit it pretty good. Because it was like there was a little bit of extra cannon fodder there, but you weren't like fighting 3 battles. You know what I mean? They were just kind of there. But I don't feel like Warzone really hit it all that well. And so I'm hopeful. I'm hopeful for Infinite and what we're gonna see there.
That's the beauty of Infinite right there. Is and for one, I wanted you were going on such a good streak, man. I really wanted to just be like, Halo is combat evolved, and I had to let you keep going on that. But
yes, exactly.
You're like, it's the evolution. I'm like, that's because it's combat evolved. But yeah, I think the best thing about Infinite is that they are telling us right out the gate that this isn't a standalone game. This is now a 10-year project. They've got their engine. They are going to be building up, and they want to make sure that Halo is going to be supported, and it's going to be available on Game Pass. Multiplayer is going to be free. So this is the next Halo. Halo Infinite is now infinite for the long term now. They know what they want to do with this. So even if something like Warzone happens, it's going to be fine because we've seen they listen to their community, they build the game with their community, and this is their iteration. We don't have to wait for them to build an entire new Halo Infinite 2 before we get changes to the game where we don't have to worry about something like a Warzone aspect. So that's why it's like, if you're a Halo fan, you should be psyched for Halo Infinite, because not only have they delayed it an entire year based on the launch because of feedback, but also this is going to be the next game. This is going to be the game that lasts and persists, and it's going to feel good. They've got an engine that's adaptable, so they're going to be able to iterate in the future and have fun with that. And that's why it's exciting to see a company like Microsoft attack this as Xbox brand and actually say like, hey, you know what? We know what the players want. They want to play fun games, and we've been doing everything that we possibly can over the last 7 years to try and prove to you that is exactly what we want for you. And yes, this is a company. You don't trust companies because they're trying to make money from you. But if the things that they're doing are the things that say we value your money enough to do what you want us to do with things, to the point where that is how we're going to retain your money, then I'm much better with that than any company that is willing to say, we're going to put something out that we think we are going to be able to get you at for $60 or $70. And you're not going to know anything about it beforehand outside of the trailers or the gameplay that we show you. And you run into problems like Cyberpunk. I do a Cyberpunk lorecast, folks. I have all the right in the world to bash on Cyberpunk if I want to. But I was hyped for that game. And CDPR did not respect their consumers. And they put out a game that should have been cooked for another year. So, and this was after Halo Infinite had already said that they were delaying their game. Like Halo Infinite said in, I think it was October, that they're going to be delaying the launch. And everyone was just like, what is the Xbox going to do? There's no games. Oh my God. How is it going to survive? It's a dead console.
Right.
And then they've shown us it doesn't matter. They've got a huge back catalog, and they're supporting that back catalog and just giving us opportunities to play old games in better ways. So, and then Cyberpunk comes around and they just absolutely drop the ball on it. And I just don't see how companies cannot listen to their audience and not respect the dollars that we spend on them, because a lot of people don't always have a lot of money to be able to spend on games. Again, we spend money on guacamole. It's fine. That's what we like.
Right.
But if you're going to want to get my money, then you have to do what an Xbox has been doing, and you have to show me that you value my opinion and you value my dollar, and you're trying to get me the best deals that you can, because you're the ones that are setting those goals. And I just absolutely love it. So I'm looking forward to Infinite. I didn't mean to cut you off there, but yeah, I'm hoping that Infinite is the same way.
No, and I feel like, to kind of just like echo what you're saying, I feel like Microsoft, Xbox, they see the current the current situation in gaming, and like that it's not looking good, right? Games keep coming out without being finished, and they took it back to the drawing board. They did what they needed to do. From my understanding with Gears, they're waiting for the next Unreal Engine, or that's what they're starting to make the next Gears game on. That's gonna put that game out quite a ways, which fine. Let that series simmer. Let that let it simmer so that we can get something that's fresh and that is what we're excited about, like what we're
Yeah.
Something that we can look forward to, versus like I fell off with Gears after Gears 3. Like I kind of fell off with that series. I love that series. I tweeted at Marcus Leto tweeted at Cliffy B about having to close the studio, and Cliffy B gets so much hate. I appreciate, and I tweeted this to both of them. I said, I appreciate both you guys so much, because you created entertainment that, like, I mean, I have hours and hours and hours of Gears of War and hours and hours and hours of Halo. I love both those series, right? Not everything's always going to be a home run. That's just life. And so, like, I'm excited that we're going to see Gears on a brand new Unreal Engine. That it's going to be, it's probably going to be incredible, as long as they can nail that story. Right? The story has got to be there, and Gears has to evolve, just like Halo's going to evolve and has to evolve. It can't just be the campaign and multiplayer. It doesn't cut it anymore. It's not that formula is just not gonna. It's not gonna do it anymore. Call of Duty came out with Warzone. Look where not that Twitch is a perfect metric, but look where the viewers are. They're in Warzone. Yeah. They're not watching Black Ops.
We've had this conversation in the past. It is a conversation that comes up quite frequently with games, and I know that we've talked about Halo Battle Royale. We've talked about other games, especially with Nintendo games. We've talked in the past about battle royales, and I'm curious. you talk about Gears of War wanting to evolve, having that evolution, having that something else that's besides the multiplayer and the campaign. Do you think Gears would do well in a battle royale setting?
I think any shooter can do well in a. I think Fortnite is proof that a third person shooter would, and PUBG, of course, who kind of got the ball rolling. I think there were some other games ahead of them, of course, that I'm not too familiar with, but I would say that like Gears could be incredible in a battle royale scenario. Gears could also be incredible in a large scale PvE scenario where you've got massive amounts of locusts that maybe a 50 to 100 person team have to go against. I feel like Gears has that 30 seconds of fun kind of thing that Halo had. They have that down. And so yeah, it could. Of course, without like, I don't know what it looks like exactly. It would take some time to flesh it out or whatever, but I think it absolutely could. The grittiness and the different weapon types and everything, and a Warzone approach with Gears gameplay, I'd be all about it. And I love that they're branching out and doing like the tactics stuff. Like I think that's great. Like utilize those brands. Halo Wars was I had some of the best time in gaming playing Halo Wars on the original 360. Like I mean that was so much fun. So I don't
you weren't I wasn't sold on it originally, the idea of a Gears battle royale, but you talking about like a 50-man against like a horde mode but with 50 guys just playing like that actually sounds really fun. Like I would love to understand what a horde mode with more than just the standard squad would look like if you were just loaded into a big map and it was just like you had a fort and you had to hold down that point before an extraction, and it was just a huge horde mode, and it was just I mean I don't know how you do the comms on that. That would be insane. Probably not comms with 50 people all in the same area, but yeah, I would be interested to see. I think you got something there. I think that would be a fun idea to experiment around with and play with. And I think with them going to Unreal 5, if the tools allow for it, and some of the things that we've seen with that engine that they've talked about, it could definitely really use some of the features like DLSS and the tessellation that they're doing with the textures to really cut down some of the overhead that maybe you probably could actually get 50 people with a huge horde mode style gameplay going to play around with that. But then again, I also kind of like the idea of a battle royale in a Gears setting. I think Gears has some of the best combat design ever. I mean, it's good enough for Outriders to steal. It's good enough for a battle royale. So why not at that point?
Yeah, there's definitely something that could be there. And you could jump in with teams of 4, so your comms are just based on your team, and then you could have whether it be like if a team was in a certain radius, they could see you pinging different items or whatever the case may be, right? I don't know how it would play out, but I mean, every time I play Fortnite, I just feel like I'm playing a cartoon version of Gears. That's what it feels like to me because of the engine, right? The shotgun gameplay, a lot of it reminds me of Gears, just the cartoon version of it, and so I love to see the evolution of how like, and the thing is, Fortnite showed us that their PvE mode was the reason they had to go towards the BR style and really rethink that whole game, right? Because it started out and it kind of flopped, and then they came out with their BR and everybody loved it. And look at Fortnite now. It's absolutely massive.
Yeah. And there's always been the question that comes up is are there too many BRs in the genre? Like, are there too many companies out there trying to capitalize on the battle royale mode? And to be perfectly honest, I think it's worth a go for every franchise. I think every franchise that feels like they've got a compelling enough gameplay loop that has the combat down could totally and should honestly playtest versions of battle royales with their games and say like, hey, is this a mode that, just like back in the day, back in the day we had just kill matches, it's just TDK or TDM, whatever it was, and then we had someone come up with oddball, or we had someone come up with point control. All of these modes just evolved over time. So I feel like if you're making a game that has combat and you've got that combat down, why not make a battle royale just to play around with it, just to see if it's compelling enough to make into an actual game? And then if it is, awesome, because you just threw yourself into a world that is still very young and very immature. People are still trying to figure out how battle royales really work. And if you're going to be trying your hand at it, why not take some of the features from your game, some of the tools that you have in your game already, and make those into that battle royale, so that you bring in ways to talk to people or ping things. So many other games are adding features that have been brought in because of other battle royales. So if you're going to be making a battle royale, then all you're doing is just kind of enriching the rest of the landscape for that, because you can bring something different, hopefully, to the genre that isn't currently being done. I mean, look at rogues and roguelikes. That was a very, just everything was procedurally generated and you didn't save anything. It was just a fresh run each time. Now we can't even really define what that genre is, because everyone's taking little things here and there. This carries over, this doesn't. You still die, or you die, but you can go back and pick up your equipment. Like, that genre has changed a lot because of the iterations that have come. So with Gears, with Halo, please, yeah, make a battle royale, but make it your battle royale, and then look at the benefits that it brings to the rest of the industry as a result.
And I think a company like 343, who, I mean, they seem community focused, right? I mean, at the end of the day, of course, it's a business. There's no question there. But like, you've got a game like Warzone, and Activision is a company fueled on greed. You can just tell by the way everything is, never does their store go down, even if the game doesn't work that well, right? But it's I can see like this the fact that Halo's going to have a 10-year plan, right? I think it's going to be very, very community focused, and they're going to listen. And I think 343 has probably watched Bungie and their progression and the kind of the rise and fall of that company, and them fighting their way back, right? And not giving up on Destiny. And I can see 343 doing the same thing, even if there is missteps. The Master Chief Collection is proof that they're going to make Halo Infinite amazing. And I'm excited to honestly, to be, I'm a huge Halo fan. So to know that this game's going to be playable for 10 years, I'm all about it, as long as they, and I mean, I spent way more money in Halo 5 than I should have, just opening those stupid rec packs, right? I mean, like telling all my, I had a big Destiny clan, everybody that was in Halo 5, I'm like, yo, make sure you guys are sending me packs, you know what I mean? Like, 'cause I was like, they were like crack for me. So, so
I mean, you bring up a really good point, and Halo is going to be around for the next 10 years. And it goes back to our earlier conversations about companies who are failing to bring their franchises forward. Nintendo, not willing to bring back Metroid Prime the way people want it to do. Imagine if Metroid Prime was a 10-year plan for them online, and that Nintendo Switch was going to be an evolved system that included party and voice chat for people, that included an easy way to drop in and drop out of Metroid Prime. You could totally build up a gameplay system that involved Metroid, but they won't do that because they see the value. I see this with Sony as well. Sony has their own designs, their own plans. What they plan on doing is releasing cinematic experiences for players that are kind of one-offs, and then when that's done, they'll take another franchise and they'll bring it over and they'll, dust it off and see how things are looking, and they'll build an iteration of that. And then we'll get some new IP once in a while, like Days Gone or Horizon Zero Dawn, which really kind of knock us off our horse, or whatever, whatever phrase, insert phrase here, and
Right.
and just surprise us. But they don't have something that Xbox is trying to do right now, especially with Halo, especially with Sea of Thieves, especially like State of Decay in a way too. Still a franchise that is trying to find its feet and trying to find what it wants to do, but it's consistent with all of these studios. Matt Booty is doing a great job of taking companies and saying, "We know you want to do this. We support you. Work on it for however long you need to, whether it's released or not, and find what makes that gameplay compelling. And then when you're ready to go, we'll put it out, we'll support it on Game Pass, and just keep playing with it." And that's it. It's why I'm so excited for Halo, because Halo is going to be a living IP, and it's been so long. It's been so long since we've had that aspect in our life. I mean, the closest thing we have is especially if you're watching the video right now, we're watching Josh order out as Master Chief in Fortnite, killing me here.
The guy from Fortnite is what the kids refer to him as now. Like every time I post a TikTok of they're like, "Oh, look, it's the guy from," like if I post a Halo TikTok, they're like, "It's the guy from Fortnite." I'm like, "You guys are killing me. You're killing me."
Yeah, and that's what's going to get kids interested. Kids are not invested in the IP right now, but their dads are, their moms are, and having the ability to bring IP forward and have it live over the next 10 years as people are playing around with it is how you're going to get kids like us when we were growing up invested in this franchise. And I cannot wait to see what kids think of it. And I hope that 343 feel like they've got a real banger on their hands right out the gate, because I think that's the thing that we all want. We want a banger right out the gate, and if they can do that, then they're going to win. I don't know what Sony has. I know they got Gears of War. Congratulations, it's a great game. I absolutely love it. But
wait, you mean God of War?
What did I say?
You said Gears of War.
Gears of War. My bad. Sorry.
I was like, wait, dude, was breaking news.
Sorry, the of wars get me sometimes.
Yeah, no, I get it.
But yeah, they've got God of War. Congratulations. That's good for you. I can't wait for the next one to see where that story goes. But I guarantee you, I'm going to spend 30 hours on that, and then I'm going to put it away, and I'm going to come right back to where I spend most of my time, which is playing these living franchises. Having these IPs for me whenever I need something to pick up and play. That's why I love playing Destiny. It's why I love playing Apex. It's because this game is just ever living. These games just constantly go. And it's not a question of, what do I feel like I need to catch up on story wise, or remember what the controls are for and stuff. It's like, no, I've got my dinner. I already know what I'm going to have. It's the comfort food for me. And I don't know how, that's the other thing too, is I don't know how Halo doesn't do a battle royale within the first year of Infinite being released, because that feels like it needs to be a thing more so than anything else that we've got.
I agree. We're gonna have to continue this again, my friend. This was a great time.
I had a great time too.
I appreciate you taking the time. Tell us where we could find you again.
Oh, there's lots of places. If you want to send your reach hate to me on Twitter, that's great. Do it at CAPT_LOGUN. Show me screenshots of the really cool thing that you didn't reach that you think is just the most impressive thing that's ever come, because that game is the absolute best version of Halo. Bring it, whatever. Otherwise, if you're not like hating on me at this point, feel free to check out my Keelhauled podcast. I do a Sea of Thieves podcast. It's all about Sea of Thieves. I absolutely love that game, because that is a game where you just go and you have fun, and it doesn't matter, because it's just each session is different. Each session is fun. If you see my skeleton too, hit me up. Feel free to send me a tweet about or a photo of you killing my skeleton. I'll retweet it. I'll share it with my community. But yeah, Keelhauled podcast is out there. Otherwise, I've got Cyberpunk Lorecast. Again, I pick the winners for these games to really latch onto and make content for. So if you want to hear about Cyberpunk and us diving into the lore, I think today we're going to be talking about the Night City Police, not in the way that you think, but in kind of like the lore aspect of the Night City Police, not how they appear behind you when you go in that. But that's a whole nother story. But yeah, those are probably the best places you can find me.
There you go. Guys, you can find me everywhere at N64Josh, and I've slowly been filling up XboxNow.tv with articles. So make sure to go check out the new website. And of course, if you want to just find a place to hang out, talk video games, my Discord, it's n64josh.com/Discord. And we got, I mean, of course, there's Nintendo fans in there, but we're slowly building an Xbox army over there as well. And we got a spot to talk PlayStation as well, because we're just gamers. We love games. Enjoy video games. That's what I'm going to say. All right. Have a good one, and we'll see you in the next one. Bye now.